Welcome to Capes, Cows and Masks, the show where we uncover the world of soups and science fiction. I'm your host, Jake Hart. I'm a podcaster and writer for Fresh Take Hub, and as always, I'm joined by my fellow co-host.
Hello, I'm David Oscar, also editor over on Fresh Take Hub, and a film journalist and writer.
And this is going to be one of our deep dive discussion episodes, and we are going to be diving into the world of blood, bullets, sex, and profanity. That is the world of rated R comic book movies and TV. Now, with the recent successful releases of films like Deadpool and Joker, and of course the upcoming Zack Snyder's Justice League, rated R superhero content has been a big talking point around the industry. So we're going to have a look at the history, impact, influence, and maybe also talk about some of our favorite flicks. And on this episode, we've got a very special guest with us, a writer and a poet, and he doesn't quite know it. It's Kyle Shaun Thomas.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, Kyle, to get your perspective on this, because I know you're a big horror fan.
Oh yeah.
And obviously horror is heavily tied to rated R, and I know you're a big action fan as well, so it'd be good to get your take on things. And obviously, as people know, I'm always a big fan of the darker stuff in comic book heroes. And Dave likes his stuff, but he likes his more kookier, crazier side of things. So it's going to be interesting that we're going to have a lot of different opinions and thoughts about this. So let's get straight to it then. Kyle, I'll start with you. When you think of rated R comic book content, movies, TV, superheroes, what's sort of the first thing that sort of comes to mind for you? And also, what is your relationship with these movies and TV that take it that extra step?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'd say that, like, my relationship, to start with, I'm going to do this backwards because the reveal will be worth it, I promise. My relationship with these, I always kind of, like, grew up around more adult content. That sounds really bad, but, like, adult-orientated, like, movies, like, and I always remember, like, being around, like, stuff like Resident Evil and, like, things in that vein. So I remember one of the earliest R-rated comic book, like, movies I saw was Blade. And I remember just, like, absolutely loving everything about it. And especially when Blade 2 came out, like, I'm a huge Del Toro fan, and I didn't know it was Del Toro at the time because I was a kid. But just everything about that, just, like, it made me scared of vampires again. Like, it was just the coolest thing, like, heavy techno beats and disgusting vampire prosthetics. What more could you want? I think there's an opportunity with these R-rated things to, I guess, give service to the people that have been waiting for it, because, like, while you have, like, there's comic book movies for everyone, don't get me wrong, but, like, There's always going to be that niche little corner in the dark for the people that are waiting for the blood and guts, and I think it's a necessary thing. Certain people need it. I think it has more of an impact when, I don't know, let's say Frank Castle's Punisher, man. Like, if you didn't have that hard hitting family background and hard hitting violence with what he does, I don't think his message and his whole sort of, like, mission statement as a character would kind of like tail off a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we'll get into it a bit later, but there's certain characters that I think if you don't do them rated R, it's almost a disservice to the characters themselves and the legacy that they've created. But Dave, where do you stand on rated R superhero stuff?
Yeah, like, it's quite interesting for me. I think I take it on, like, a case-by-case basis. I don't see it as, like, oh, I love, like, rated R content. And, unlike Kyle, I sort of didn't grow up as sort of in front of more sort of, like, graphic content. When I was younger, I was sort of shielded a bit more away from that kind of stuff. And I was always kind of then maybe, when I was, like, getting into, like, teenage years and stuff, I was still a bit scared, like, oh my god, what's gonna be in this film, and that kind of stuff. And you're watching things like, oh, okay, this isn't actually as bad as you make out. And I remember, it's the kind of, like, stuff you have as a kid, isn't it? Like, I remember my cousins, they're like, oh, we're going to show you this film and you're going to be really scared. You know, they were always like taunting me and that kind of stuff. So that made me sort of like even more like scared about it. So it was the idea more than the actual content itself. But, you know, I did come to appreciate a lot of it, especially when it was used for the sake of humor. So, you know, I always like, you know, comedy, and, you know, I can quite enjoy like dark comedy. So definitely something like I've mentioned, one of my favorite superhero movies, Kick-Ass, like that was like a big moment for me for sort of seeing what the potential of specifically R-rated content can be, in that it can be used to sort of show, you know, realistic depictions, but do it in like a sort of crude and darkly funny sort of way. Whereas again, in the past, I hadn't seen it as much of a like, oh yeah, I just want to see this character's head, you know, this character rip off someone's head or that kind of stuff. I was never kind of into that. But if it means that there's somebody like running around in like a purple outfit, you know, stabbing guys and, you know, shooting them, etc., or like firing rocket launchers, then again, like you said previously, Jake, you know, it's just kind of crazy, kooky kind of stuff that I do enjoy and I do like. So, you know, that kind of stuff I do like. Whereas, you know, I wasn't as drawn to characters like Punisher or Blade as much when I was younger. So, you know, my introduction has been more through those sort of like that balance of like colorful and gory kind of stuff, which we've had more and more over the years. But yeah, I appreciate it on like a case by case basis. It depends. I'm not a big fan of it when they do use it with established characters and more traditional family sort of, you know, established as a family character, or like, you know, was aimed at children and then they tried to go dark with it or go rated R. So I think an example like, you know, Punisher, etc., is that you know, they are a character that's made for that type of audience. There's never that kind of like kids grew up on Punisher, because he's never been that type of character. Whereas I think
I'm going to chime in, but yeah, and I'm going to disagree because I remember in the 90s animated Spider-Man series, they introduced Punisher and he had laser guns.
Yeah, true.
I was going to say Punisher's introduction in Marvel was in Spider-Man comics.
Yeah, that's true. But what I mean is in the sense of like a character like Batman or Superman, a character that's more traditionally, you know, this is a character for this type of audience and we've seen him for years do this type of stuff. Whereas again, Punisher is a guy which walks around with a skull on his chest. So even in a more like kid-friendly or animated world, they are already saying that this character is a bit more dark, a bit more gritty. They've never saw, you know, it's not a guy running around in red underpants like Superman is. So there was never the notion that that character was kind of affiliated with, you know, with younger audiences as much. So yeah, I'm just not as big a fan of it when they sort of take pre-existing characters and then change it. I think it works better in a context of something like The Boys or Kick-Ass, in which is characters in which we've never seen before, and you're not looking at it then through different lenses.
That's a fair statement, I will say. All I will say is that I think I have more of a history closer to Kyle's, that when I was growing up, you know, reading these comics, and especially the Batman animated show was a huge impact for me, as I was poured over it every Saturday morning, and it did lead into that darker sensibilities of these characters, while still obviously primarily being a kid's show. But it was when I was sort of going into my adolescent years, 12, 13, and, you know, I've spoken about it before, but the moment that everything changed for me was when I first read Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. Reading over that, I was just so like, oh my God, this is a darker, more brutal, adult take on the Batman and, you know, his mythos and stuff like that. So I just poured over that. I was like, oh my God. And then it was at the time where, much like Kyle, I was starting to get into movies and movies that I loved. And my sensibilities was, you know, dudes in trench coats, black leather, sunglasses. So obviously The Matrix is a big influence on me. And, you know, The Matrix has a lot of same stylistic styles to Blade, like Kyle mentioned. You know, obviously it's just, instead of sci-fi, it's vampires and horror, but still it's all sort of part of that era of movies, that late 90s, early noughties, where they were mixing techno with violence. And it was just, it just screamed to me, you know what I mean? I was like, yeah, this is the stuff I want. So growing up, I was always wanting more darker material, and I think it also related to, in my teenage years, me getting into heavy metal music. As I got older as well, the music itself got heavier and got more darker, so I was a bit of a rebellious teenager as well, so there was a sense of like, you know, if my parents at a younger age, no, you can't see that, it made me want to watch that film even more. Do you know what I mean? And my earliest memory of a film like that is actually Batman Returns. For the longest time, I was not allowed to see that film, because when that film first came out, I believe it was an 18 or a 15, because it was so dark for the time, you know, penguins biting off people's noses and stuff like that. And I was just like, I need to see this film. This is like my film. I am a goth kid. So my mum was like, no, you can't see it. But when I finally got to see it, I was like, yes, this is me. And then I also go back to a film which is near and dear to my heart, is The Crow. You know, that's all got this gothic architecture, and it ties in with like the Tim Burton Batman style revenge, and it's still a comic book movie, and it's got blood and violence. I was like, yes, this just screams to me. So as I've grown older, I've just naturally I wouldn't say preferred, but veered towards more adult-oriented takes on superheroes. That's why I'm a big fan of what Zack Snyder has done with the DC characters, and look forward to what his take is in Justice League. I think it also breeds more room for different stories to be told. And characters like the Punisher, as I said earlier, if you target that towards a family-friendly audience, I feel as if you miss so much of what the character Punisher is trying to actually say about the world we live in. And, you know, we live in the real world. You know, it's not all kumbaya, holding hands, everyone smiling. Bad shit happens.
You could
People
almost
die.
say that we live in a society.
We live in a fucking society. Exactly, Kyle. So, you know, that's why I think the rated R stuff, in a way, reflects our real life and our humanity more than maybe the family-oriented stuff. And I'm still big fan of the PG-13 stuff, you know?
Yeah. Love
me some MCU. But there is that question of, like, how much can we do this before it maybe starts to get a bit stale, before we can, let's start to explore different avenues, some things maybe a bit darker. We'll get into it a bit later, which is why there's a big question mark on the MCU tackling Blade as a PG-13 movie.
Yeah. Well, I also want to say that apart from like the colorful, kooky stuff, you know, the darker stuff that did then have like an influence on me was like Batman. Like I grew up on the animated series, loved that. And then, like you said, you know, I'm a big Tim Burton fan, even though I didn't like dress as a goth or never like associated myself with goth culture. For some reason, I've always loved the Tim Burton like gothic aspects of it.
There's still time for you, David.
Yeah, you know, I never know. I'll be there like 80 years old with some black lipstick on.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And also, you know, like the Alan Moore, like, you know, V for Vendetta, and then Watchmen as well. I remember when that film came out, that was the first time I didn't know about Watchmen before that. And I was like, oh, what's this big, like, legacy comic everyone's talking about? And I looked into it. I looked into the violence that was in the first comic. So because that was being advertised as this kind of like big epic superhero movie, I was like I saw the trailer and I was like, oh my God. But then I saw it was an 18 and I was like, oh. And I think maybe because at the time I was like 17 or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, well, you know, what exactly is in this then? And I'm like reading it and like, because there was like a breakdown of what was included. I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is like dark. And again, it associates more with that sort of Snyder aesthetic, I suppose, isn't it? Of the kind of more gritty, dark action elements that he likes to do, but then also V for Vendetta and that also showed that side of like, it shows some darker side of humanity and this dark side of those superheroes, which I also enjoy. It's again, it's like The Boys is saying like, you know, what if these people with superpowers abused it, which, you know, I think works really well as well.
You're probably thinking, my boyfriend said this was a superhero movie, but that guy in the red suit just turned that other guy into a fucking kebab. Well, I may be super, but I am no hero.
Kyle, I'll go to you for this next question. for you, when does a project suit an R rating and when doesn't it? At what point do you draw the line? Is it certain characters or certain themes you want to tackle?
Oh, that's a really difficult question, and I don't want to spend this entire podcast just like sitting on the fence, but I think it really, really depends. Because, I don't know, like, for example, like, one of the violent comic panels that have come into mind is from Civil War, where Spider-Man breaks Iron Man's arm. You could argue, like, if you had done it close to the source material, it would have made sense. If you're doing it purely to push people's buttons and to be shocking, probably not going to go over as well. So I think it really, really depends. And I think, like, a good example of this, I wouldn't necessarily, like, Man of Steel isn't R-rated. Like, I'm not wrong in saying
No,
that.
it's not. No, it's not. It's PG-13.
Yeah, exactly. So the part, like, and I know this really irks some people, in Superman breaking his code and killing Zod. Spoiler alert if you're late to the Man of Steel party. But I really, really enjoyed that moment, because to me it said, okay, this man has set himself up these parameters to be a good hero and an example, but when push comes to shove, he's willing to do what it takes to keep people safe. And I was not expecting such a visceral sort of way to do it as well in snapping Zod's neck, but I thought, man, that really works for me. So I think it entirely comes down to what, like, sort of story you're trying to tell. Because if you're just adapting, like, X-Men, just a standard X-Men movie, random issue number 95, and you're like, I think it'd be a good idea if we let Wolverine walk into this, like, adoption center and just slaughter everyone because he's under mind control. It's not going to go over as well. I think it really, if you have a reason for it and you've really thought out the reasons why this violence is happening and why it's getting darker, it works. If you look at Logan, like, definitely R-rated, and I think it's just so much more emotionally devastating than if it wasn't. Because that scene, the final scene where he's holding his daughter's hand, like, I won't go too spoilerific with it just in case, but, like, that scene is so heart-wrenching to me, and I don't think it would have necessarily had the same impact if it was PG-13, so I stand by my fence-sitting ways in saying it entirely depends on where you're trying to go.
Yeah, would you say the same, Dave? It just depends on what direction you want to take these characters, or do you think that certain characters have to remain rated R? For example, the Punisher.
Well, it's like you said, but are there certain characters who should remain never rated R? I think that's the problem that you do get. And one interesting video I watched recently, I watch his stuff quite a lot, but I just didn't watch this because, to be honest, I saw a thumbnail and I thought, oh, he's going to be ragging on that stuff. I don't want to watch this. But it's a YouTuber who does video essays called Patrick Willems, and he did a video which is, what's the point of rated R superheroes? And in the thumbnail, he had Homelander from The Boys, and I was like, oh, I'm not watching that. I love The Boys. But actually, I watched the video. I was like, oh, okay, he actually makes the point of, I love The Boys. I love Logan. But his argument is that he believes that they work because they are characters who have no history of ever being anything other than rated R, and the entire point of those characters is to show they are violent for a reason. They are, literally showing blood and breaking people's necks, because that's the commentary that they're making, is that they're adult stories, and that they're saying that what would happen if these superheroes, abuse their power. And obviously they show that it's a negative and bad thing that's happening, because you've got characters like Huey, which are reacting to it and feeling, the negative effects of it. They never sort of glorify the violence. So I think that's sometimes where you can get problems, is when does it become too much of a glorification of not so much, again, I suppose, again, characters like Blade, maybe not so much because it's just vampires. So, sorry,
Vampires
vampire
have
community.
rights.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, vampire community. But again, with things like Punisher and that kind of stuff, there is some form of effect and toll that has, and there is a sort of like moral question to everything that happens with him. Whereas, again, if it's something like Batman, or an example that he brings up, which I forgot about, and is kind of the reason that I didn't watch the show when it first came out, was Teen Titans. You know, the fact that you had that whole famous, like, fuck Batman. And the opening scene of that, when, like, Robin is there, like, grinding people's faces up against glass, it always just came across as, like, trying too much. And it was like, why are you doing this? What does, you know, what do the Teen Titans have any links to, like, rated R or violence? Why do they need to be rated R? Like, it's a freaking guy who turns into animals, for God's sake. What the hell does that have to do with being, you know, again, Punisher, he's somebody who is called Punisher. You know, he literally beats people up. He has guns and stuff like that. Whereas characters who, you know, again, sorry, Robin, but usually you are associated with having a bright, colourful, spangly outfit, and, you know, characters who are robots and aliens, I don't really see the relevance of them being rated R. So it's, again, it depends on whether it's done for popularity, which I think in that case they kind of were. And there is, I think, a justification in what people said with Birds of Prey, is the Harley Quinn is, you know, was a character who was introduced in an animated show and has ultimately now become a character which is not enjoyable for small girls or for little kids, because they can't watch any of her content, because everything she is in is rated R. So
oh yeah, the animated show as well. Yeah,
and the Teen Titans is a good example, because it's that weird realm of, you've got like a rated R TV show, and then you've got Teen Titans Go, and you're like, whoa, like, what are you trying to say?
I think that's a really interesting point to bring up, especially with Titans is concerned, because if you look at it, there's no real history, I'd say, of Daredevil being R-rated, but then you get the Netflix series, which is arguably quite brutal for its long one-take action scenes.
But the reason I sort of push back on that is that with characters like Daredevil and Batman, is that there's enough dark sensibilities in their previous comics that you can easily transcend that to an adult R-rated movie or TV show. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you read Frank Miller's run on Daredevil in the late 70s going on to the early 80s, you know, the Daredevil Netflix show is pretty much just adapting that. And some of the fight scenes in the comics are actually pretty intense. The reason that they're more geared towards children is that no actual blood is shown. And this is where it gets kind of tricky with the whole rating system, because, you know, who rates what? You know what I mean? Because we have different ratings depending on what territory you're in. You know, you look at a film like Deadpool, which is obviously hard R in America, you know, and in America, that means 17 and over if you want to watch. But over here in the UK, it's a 15 movie. Do you know what I mean? So at what point, who gets to decide what can be shown to different, you know, sort of ages? But it all goes down to, again, we're not going to get into that, but parenting of your own children. But I think, I agree with Dave, you need to look at what these characters have done before. So Teen Titans is a perfect example. Nowhere in their history have they ever had dark storylines, dark sensibilities. Robin's never said "fuck Batman." Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember seeing that trailer when they first said that. I was like, "Oh, what the hell? You're just trying to do this to be edgy for this. You're capitalizing on the success of R-rated stuff." But then, if I look at what Zack Snyder did in the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs Superman, taking Batman a very darker route, I like, well, yeah, that's what Frank Miller did with Batman. And if I look at what the same with the Daredevil movie, the director's cut, that's rated R. It's what Frank Miller did with Batman, the Punisher, and all these characters. But with Harley Quinn's an interesting one, because yes, she was originally created as a cartoon character for children. Over the years, she has matured as a character, and I think it's a bit unfair to say that little girls can't keep on watching her, because there's plenty of other stuff she's been in that they can dive into and appreciate Harley Quinn. But there's also that market of like older audience for women who want to see female superpowered beings, whether that be heroes or anti-heroes or villains, kicking ass. Do you know what I mean? Like, I go back to what Margot Robbie said when she was making the film. She said she's had plenty of crazy nights out with her girls that have involved all sorts of mayhem, and she wanted to sort of bring that into the world of Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey. So it kind of totally makes sense for me, but at the same time, I do see your point. At what point do you decide to go, let's make this character rated R for the sake of it?
I'm kind of questioning, like, what little girls are choosing to pursue Harley Quinn over, like, Wonder Woman right now.
Yeah, exactly. To be honest, I don't really affiliate myself with that example as much, because I think even though while she appeared in the animated series, the character is, again, a character which is talking about emotional and, physical abuse, and was very sexual and was very sort of tongue-in-cheek. So I think the character always did sort of lead into the sort of more older audience anyway. And again, like Kyle said, I can't imagine many little girls were just like, oh, I love Harley Quinn, like said, they're more into Supergirl and those kind of characters, etc. Or hell, they can be into Superman. I'm not judging, only girls can like girl characters and boys can like boy characters. But yeah, I think, but there is an interesting element of, and again, I don't want to bring this video up too much, but it did echo so many of my own thoughts. But it was weird because he brought up so many elements that we've recently talked about. So the DC animated movies, for example, he brings that up and says there's weird that there's like this R-rated Justice League cartoon out there, while at the same time there's no children's Justice League. So what he brings up then, which is a quote, I think, as well from Roger Langridge, I think his name is that there's this worry that children will get left behind as older audiences only get this superhero content, whereas the content like we had, like the Justice League cartoon, how will they grow up with these characters if they don't have these cartoons in this media? If you only have comic books which are aimed towards adults and TV shows that are aimed at adults, then the kids will just get left behind, which means that you're going to miss out on a generation, which potentially then means that those characters won't be around in another 30, 40 years' time, because they haven't got like what we've got, which is, oh yeah, I grew up with Harley Quinn. Oh, I can now enjoy Harley Quinn as an adult character. But once we've then passed on, but then there's like kids who didn't grow up with her, well, they've got no reason to enjoy Harley because they never grew up with her. So I think that is an interesting point to make. And I think especially with the DC animated stuff, because we talked about how it's appealing to that audience which has kind of grown up with the animated content, and it does mean that then actually they forget and lose out on the newer audience, which I think is interesting.
It's interesting, and don't get me wrong, it's an absolutely viable point. I don't know, I just feel like you said, like the younger generation or the next generation of comic book fans like being left behind. My argument like is sort of like the same argument for people who aren't really for remakes. It's like, well, you have that Justice League animated things. Like those things still exist. Like you don't necessarily need constant fresh stuff to get them into it. But on the other hand, like I do, like I really get that. Like you said, like there's certain sort of things where I'm sure the people making Harley Quinn, like Birds of Prey, have gone, oh, I grew up with that character, let's do something a little bit more risky because that's what the character's about, and the kids who grew up with her are now our age and they'll appreciate and understand it. Where, like, I think, I don't know, it's bizarre because I think it's sort of like that yin and yang thing where for every, like, I don't know, let's say 3 Marvel films, we get like maybe 1 R-rated, like super R-rated out there sort of thing. So I don't really know, because I definitely say while Deadpool's been a success, Birds of Prey has been a moderate success, and you've got these things that are trying for R-rated, I just think at the end of the day, like, superhero fans are going to be superhero fans regardless, whether it's like super R-rated, because like, for example, like I'm grew up on Blade, I loved all that jazz, but I am interested to see how you can get around that. I am interested because it doesn't necessarily need to be the be-all and end-all of that character, because there's so much more to it. For example, like they said Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was going to be a horror movie. That director is no longer attached. Okay, you've just done WandaVision. I'm not going to spoil anything, but you're bringing in darker elements. So I think there is a way to do these things in good taste, and I think that's what it comes down to, is the taste.
It's a good point about the growing up with stuff though, because for example, I watched Top Cat when I was young. That came out in the 60s. Doesn't mean but again, they didn't bring out a new Top Cat when I was growing up. So yeah, of course, you can still grow up with those characters and watch the Justice League cartoons. Especially with streaming these days, it's more accessible to a bigger audience and that kind of stuff. But I think it does come down to as well whether certain characters, like you said, with Blade or with the MCU, for example, I'm sometimes more interested how they get around it. Like I said, I don't think you could do that with Deadpool, not at all. But would I want to see Wanda snapping somebody's neck? Well, no, I don't think that would sort of be right, because you've seen it before, and we've seen it with the Snyder Cut. Sorry, not the Snyder Cut, the Ultimate Cut of Batman v Superman. Like the Ultimate Cut was rated R, whereas the theatrical cut wasn't, and a lot of that come down to just like, was there blood or not? So, and some of that sometimes can add or take away from certain elements. So again, in Kick-Ass, one of the moments that I love is near the end when he's come away from that hostage situation and he looks like shit, and he's like looking in the mirror and he like tries to clean himself up, and then as much as he tries to clean himself up, he's still bleeding and looks like absolute crap, and you feel that then, like, oh my god, he is really hurt, he's really like damaged from that. Whereas again, if you were there to watch Vision or Wanda or someone slap somebody away with a laser beam and you just saw them hit a wall, then you'd be like, oh, that guy got badly hurt. But if you saw like blood against the wall after they fell down, you'd be like, oh shit, like they're dead. That would change the context of what you've just seen. And the same thing happens in Batman v Superman in that Ultimate Cut. I think he throws a crate at somebody in the theatrical cut and he just gets knocked over. In the R-rated one, there's blood on the wall and you're like, oh my god, Batman's killed somebody. So it does go to show that they can change the entire context of a scene or a property. So sometimes I'm more interested in about how they can get around that and how it can still be, you just invest yourself in the fun and theatrics of like, okay, we know this would never happen, this couldn't physically be real, you would never be able to punch somebody like that. But whereas sometimes the realism isn't as enjoyable.
I was thinking about this as you guys were speaking. This is what a lot of people bring up in terms of the MCU, that with destruction, collateral damage, and death, we actually witness it. A lot of people complain that the MCU, because there's not much of that, there's no consequence. So do you feel as if you need to see that for there to be further consequence to the story and the characters involved?
No, that's a load of crap. Like, I was literally thinking about this as this podcast has been going on, is like, if you take the scene where in Civil War where Wanda throws crossbones into that civilian building and that thing goes like full 9/11 and like people are falling from the building and like there's screaming and there's gore and everything, that's overkill. Like, we got the emotional fallout, we got like how much that played a part in WandaVision and everything else. Like, you can show this emotional turmoil, devastation and fallout from these consequences. Like, yeah, okay, like Civil War might be like one of the few examples where, yes, there was fallout, the government got involved and all of that, wonderful. You sort of see it to an extent in Spider-Man Homecoming where like the cleanup crew and of the Chitauri and whatever, but I honestly think that, like, I come back to like horror really, where I think like a lot of like horror fans are in it for being scared and the adrenaline of feeling afraid and stuff, and I think like pounding people with violence in a comic book movie just isn't the way to go. I don't know, man. Like, it boggles my mind. It's like a paradox, like where I'm just going in circles trying to figure it out because I have no real answer for it.
I think it is an interesting discussion because I think we've pretty much set up that you don't need violence, you don't need sex, profanity to tell a good story. It's sort of more about the themes and the messages they're going about. But can the adult themes be portrayed for a younger audience? I mean, the ones I look to perfectly is Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, where you could argue those films are for adults, sophisticated storytelling. It just involves a guy in a bat costume. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, there's plenty of thrill and stuff that younger audiences can enjoy from those films. So whenever someone says, can it be done? I'm like, well, those films are almost the perfect example. I mean, The Dark Knight, I believe Nolan said there was at one point a cut of the film which was rated R. That was due to certain violent scenes that the Joker was doing. But obviously to get the PG-13, to get maximum box office, they had to cut those scenes out. But at the same time, did it detract from how dark and twisted Heath Ledger's Joker was in that movie? Any person of any age was on their seat with every move he made, not knowing what he was going to do. And in a way, it kind of goes back to like the Jaws effect. Is it kind of more thrilling or more scary if you don't see it? If there's something, yeah.
And the fact that a lot of people are saying whether the Batman will be rated R or it should be rated R. And again, I can't see it ever happening because, like you said, Warner Brothers want, Batman is such a huge character for children and for merchandise. And, it is kind of weird, how can you have a character who's there, causing people death or, stabbing them or, and then having them, also having them on like a lunchbox, like Batman, yeah, like said. And
hey, Freddy Krueger was on lunchboxes.
So, but yeah, it is. I think The Dark Knight is a good example to use of that balance of not going too far, but still making them a scary and intimidating character.
Well, it's like if you consider that the Russos, when doing Endgame, had a version where they wanted Thanos to show up and roll Captain America's decapitated head from an alternate timeline through a portal, and that would be his entrance.
Whoa.
That would for sure set the tone of, okay, this guy he's not to be trifled with.
I was sorry, Kai, I was going to say, I love Zack Snyder, but that sounds something Zack Snyder would do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's the thing. It's like you've already established Thanos as a force to be reckoned with. The way he instantly takes out the Hulk, instantly kills Loki. He spends an entire 2.5 hours putting the heroes on their ass. You don't need the Warriors moment of ultimate violence of rolling Chris Evans' decapitated head through a portal, because not only you have young kids there, they're there for the superheroes and the big action sequences. That would be pretty traumatic, I'd say. If depending on how out there you went, but the point still stands is that's a dude's head removed from his body.
Well,
so
and also but it brings up the element that there is the whole DC is darker and Marvel is more light and fluffy, because as Deadpool said it, oh, you're so dark, are you from the DC universe? So they've given themselves that reputation, and in some ways they've tried to get away from it, but then they keep coming back to it. So I think a good example is, again, Shazam. Did I watch that film and go, this is made for kids? In some elements I did, because there was a bunch of children in it, and they're all cute little kids, and they turn into these big superheroes and everything. But at the same time, there's a bunch of demons who throw people outside of windows, and it gets quite dark at sometimes. And you're like, well, I don't know. This is more appealing to that kind of 80s Gremlins kind of vibe, rather than this is for 6-year-olds. So when I go back to, and you guys would probably disagree with me on this, especially as horror fans, but Aquaman, I found that trench scene to be really out of place in that film. I was just like, what is this? What's that?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay, right, well, that's fine.
It's just one that just flew under my radar.
Okay, I thought of all things that I was going to be oh, well, a horror moment from James Wan in a big colorful superhero film that's where Kyle's gonna be oh, excuse me, but
it's fun. It's funny you bring that up, because then Warner Brothers soon after were we're making a Trench TV show.
Yeah. I was like, what? Okay, but again, if they want to make a Trench TV show or film, fine, because it'll work in the confines of its own story. But to have this big colorful 1 minute, somebody's there literally octopus playing the drums, as Jake has in the past pointed out, and having Atlantis all neon, all colorful, somebody walking out of a waterfall in a bright orange and green outfit, and then to have this weird like dark horror moment in which like it all becomes scary and these like graphic characters start attacking them. I was like, why is this here? What is this doing here? So it's again, it's about that tone. Like, I felt that was completely mismatched with what James Wan was going for in the rest of the film. And it just goes to show that, again, if you go in with this kind of like Aquaman is ridiculous and silly aspect, then you kind of have to big that up and do the more elaborate and unbelievable action rather than the dark, gritty stuff. So it's hard for DC to work in that context because, again, for Marvel, they have to keep doing it, because if they ever stray into rated R or violent content, then that sets a bar for the entire universe. So because they're so focused on the world as a whole and their cinematic universe, if you ever show then something really violent or really dark, well, people will say, well, why didn't that happen there? Why did that person bleed there? Why did their head come off in that scene, but it didn't come off in that scene? So that's the problem. And obviously that's why Deadpool is such a difficult character for them to approach, I think, going forward, whereas DC has kind of gone, oh, well, just take each film as it comes kind of thing.
Two things. One, in regards to the Deadpool thing, yeah, I can imagine them, Kevin Feige and co, being like, oh, how are we going to do this? But, the fans want Deadpool. They want him rated R. But the thing is that Deadpool is one of those very few characters that you could easily get away with it because you can play on the humor of Deadpool, of him having a solo film and it being rated R, and then if he shows up in an Avengers film or another Marvel film that's PG-13, you can play on the joke that he can't swear, and he would obviously be breaking the fourth wall, being like, oh, wait, what happened there? That sort of thing. I forgot, this is not my movie. But with DC, this whole thing of like DC is dark and like, this is a really new thing. Like, it's never been that case in the comics, really. Like, yes, Batman can be dark, but if you look at the other characters, Superman, the Beacon of Hope, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern is a buddy space cop thing, with weird aliens and him making mittens out of green energy. Like, it's Flash, Aquaman, all goofy stuff. So this stigma that DC dark and it has to be geared to adults, I think is completely wrong. I think that was only sort of set up from the Nolan trilogy and how successful that was, which let's be real here. This is a movie business, and at the end, they're going to see what's working for them successfully and go, oh, let's just make that because that's what earned us a lot of dollars. So I'm not surprised that after the success of the Dark Knight trilogy, Zack Snyder came in and was like, look, this is what I want to do with these characters. I want to make them even darker. You know what I mean? And they were like, oh, yeah, cool. That earned us a lot of money. And, we'll take that on board. But what they failed to realize is that, like Dave said, you're trying to establish a universe of these characters who really in history have hints of, darker tendencies, but are made for children. Nolan set out to say, this is my Batman trilogy. This has nothing to do with DC and all that. So we as fans going into it sort of knew that and expected that distance so you can be more experimental, which is why I think the majority of people are unhappy with the rated R approach of Zack Snyder and these characters because they want the characters that we see in the comics. So, but this is the other question I bring up, and I asked you, Kyle, should these characters remain towards a family audience, or is there room to do both?
I was thinking, like, it all comes down to the eye of the beholder. Because I was thinking, like, I grew up watching Disney. I also grew up watching my mum play Resident Evil. But if you ask me...
In real life or the video game?
The video game. Yeah. And if you ask me, what's one of the few things that terrified me as a child, it's the goddamn whale from Pinocchio. And like over zombies. Like I think it really depends on who's viewing it. I know, like, we're talking rated R, we're going full swear words, blood, violence, whatever. I think it comes down to the story you want to tell, because you've got Constantine, like the Keanu Reeves movie, a rated R movie, really interesting, quite creepy. But then you've got Doctor Strange. Both can be argued that they're very similar characters. I don't know, like, if you're going to introduce... I think Marvel are starting to, like dip their toe into the little bit of darker stuff. Because we've seen it now in WandaVision with certain Coven members, which I thought was absolutely sick. It was so cool. Like certain, like, flashbacks to reality of, like, repercussions of people's deaths. Like, really interesting.
I can see you really tiptoeing around the spoilers.
Yeah,
there.
I'm trying my hardest. But then, like, if you're gonna, I don't know what they have, like, later down the line, but if you're gonna introduce someone like Ghost Rider again, there's, like, it's a dude in a leather jacket with a flaming skull who, like, damns people based on their sins. It's pretty hardcore. Like, I'm tongue-tied because I'm like, look, the proof is in the pudding. Like, Colonel Mustard in the kitchen with the candlestick.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty dark. Like, but I don't know. I think there's also, like, the landscape that we live in. Like, we live in a society where I think people are trying their best to be better, to make the world better, and that means making sure there are things for children that don't taint their viewing experiences, whereas, like, me and Jake, like, grew up on darker stuff, and, like, I remember my parents being like, yeah, okay, you can watch these things only under the guise of, if we ever catch you replicating violence or replicating swear words, you'll never watch a single movie again. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, they're just movies. Like, there was never, like, a moment where I was like, yes, give me the knife. I'm now brainwashed with violence and want to kill people. Like, I always knew they were movies, but I also...
What, like the Joker movie did? It turned everyone into incels.
Yeah, oh god, yeah. It's a good thing this isn't on Twitch. We would have just got banned. But yeah, like, I think, like, if you take the time to, like, teach children, impressionable minds, that these are movies and they are fake, and you do explain to them that there is a reason for this violence, as whatever your reason might want to be, then I think there's a chance for them to grow and understand and be more accepting of these violent things. Whereas if you keep them under the umbrella their whole lives, the moment they finally see it, like, I don't know, like at 13, they might go, what the actual fuck? Like, I think there's a good chance of teaching them when they come to a certain age that there are these other things that are a little bit more risque, and there's opportunity for those things. But if you're just going to avoid the topic matter, like the dark, dirty secret of, like, yeah, we've got characters like Carnage, who is just a vicious psychopath and murderer, but let's not talk about that. Look, Spider-Man, ooh, ah. Like, you've got to acknowledge these things, but, like, I don't know. I don't have the answers, folks.
I think, to me, though, like, that's why it's interesting that it's violence that makes these rated R, isn't it? Because, like you said, Kyle, what you were saying reminds me a lot of video games. There's always been that argument of, we don't want to bring up certain ex-presidents, but, like, well, I think a lot of the gun violence in America is because of these video games, and it's just like, fuck off. Like, I didn't grow up with these horror films, but I did grow up on, like, Grand Theft Auto and stuff, going around beating people with a baseball, like, literally going up to a car, taking somebody out of the car and beating them with a baseball bat and seeing the blood, like, splatter on the floor. Like, I would use cheats to, like, put a bunch of people in a bus and crash the bus into the ocean and watch all these dead people floating there. Like, that's some psycho shit right there.
The director's cut of speed.
Yeah, but I didn't grow up and then go, like Kyle said, like, yeah, that's a right thing to do. Like, yeah, I could just go around and do whatever the hell I like. Clearly, the people who do that are, like, mentally damaged and troubled people who were going to be, like, thrown over the edge no matter what the hell happened. But to me, something should be rated R and, like, kept away from children if it's like sexual or something that's going to maybe disturb them. If it's like something like mutilation or like an idea that you're like, oh my God. Whereas again, I don't think as you know, yeah, as a kid, I remember like Lord of the Rings, for example. Like I was terrified, like the ring wraiths and stuff like that. So you can be terrified by loads of things without it actually having to show blood and violence and gore. And even when you do, again, you're like, oh well, you know that that's fake, or again, it's just a bit of blood, or but it's. And yeah, like a decapitated head, especially if it's like a vampire's head or something, you're like, I know that that's not real.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I was just thinking then, like, the opening of the first X-Men movie is Magneto in a concentration camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dark imagery. You've always gone with, like, this guy being a Holocaust survivor. And that's the thing, is, like, can we use this darker, real-world sort of, like, history as an opportunity to help the next generation learn? Because I remember like seeing the Magneto scene in question as a kid and not realizing until I was a lot older that, oh, that's a Holocaust thing. I didn't realize how dark that thing was. But like these things can be handled and they can be talked about. Like I think it's just being able to don't, like, I know it comes down to like it's a business, we need to make money, and if it's a gamble we don't necessarily want to do it. But I think without the confidence and ingenuity of going, let's try something new here. Let's talk about something that like you won't get this new big wave of ooh ah. Like if Christopher Nolan hadn't done his Batman, we might still be stuck with Adam West Batman. Like things change, times change. But do I think like I don't know. Iron Man should kill someone? No.
Exactly.
To go on what you're saying there and like, making money and successful, I think at the end of the day, though, it just matters about what story you're telling, because the two perfect examples are Deadpool and Joker. Joker, look, it's the highest earning rated R, not comic book film, movie of all time. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's pretty much established that, no, it doesn't matter what the rating is. If you make a good flick, or at least, well, that Joker can be debated amongst a lot of people whether it's a good flick or not. But if you make a flick that gets people talking and it has something to say, like, people are going to turn up for it. And also to go back to what you said, Kyle, about are we making something for saying something new about these more adult themes? You could argue that you could have made that Joker film PG-13 and focused more on the mental health aspects of it, but I would say probably the violence in the Joker is what steered it towards the rated R. But then again, I think it would do a disservice to the character and the story that character was going through in that film if there wasn't violence.
It's a bit like Logan, though, isn't it? Like, to me, in a lot of ways, that film is very much just its own thing with the veil of Joker in some ways. It's just some psycho guy dressed as a clown in many ways. At the end of the day, we haven't got, Harley Quinn. He's not there with laughing gas. He's not there with, the typical tropes of the Joker or the Batman universe. So I think that that's a very specific example, and you could kind of say the same for something like Logan, because again, that's very much of its own world and it's a very specific situation. But when it comes down to characters like Wonder Woman, Superman, Aquaman, that's where it gets more muddy, and that's where, like you said earlier, Jake, why they've struggled with, that Snyder universe is that how do you have a character like Aquaman who's 1 minute like riding around on a seahorse, or Wonder Woman who's like literally in the film we just had, like Wonder Woman 1984 is like, I will not hurt people, I will not use my sword and shield anymore, and then have them all come together in this film in which you've also got like a Superman who's willing to break somebody's neck or has gone through like this dark, gritty storyline. It's too muddy, because again, characters like Deadpool just wouldn't be there, or like it's not like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is going to turn up in the Batman. I know a lot of people want that, but like I just don't think you could ever cross those worlds. So as long as they exist within their own world, it's fine. It's just the fact that it's going to be, you can't really mix them as much, and that's again why the DC Justice League kind of failed, because they haven't got the ability to sort of go 1 minute it's this, 1 minute it's that. You can't have like a character like bludgeoning somebody 1 minute and then like be sat next to somebody who's riding a seahorse and is all fun and colourful imagination kind of stuff. you can do that a bit more now, because I was talking to Jake about this the other day. Streaming and the world we're in has worked to Zack Snyder's benefit, because now they can be like, oh yeah, multiverse, this is just another like universe. But people wanted, at the end of the day, a simple established Justice League, which is like a blanket version which everyone can enjoy. Zack Snyder's vision was very much his own vision and a very alternate Elseworlds kind of take, which I think would be good going forward as an Elseworlds alternate story, which can exist on streaming as its own thing. But ultimately, you don't want to make that like the main project that you have out there. And again, I don't know if I'd want to see a character like Batman or Superman killing people or causing like blood and harm. I think it just depends on the context of the characters. And like Kyle said, there's plenty of times where I don't think anybody's advocating for getting rid of dark storylines. Like, that's always going to be there. Like I said the other day on Well Good Movies, we were talking about how in Toy Story Sid's room looks like the shining carpet, and there's like some creepy doll on a mechanical crab body. It's that kind of stuff that stays with you. But again, none of that is there to sort of be rated R. It kind of works because they're kind of walking that line of creepy, but without going too grotesque.
Well, that's the thing. I was just thinking, like, if you're doing, like, okay, let's say next Doctor Strange movie, we want to go really violent with it. There's obviously going to be the people that are concerned about doing that. Like, I'm wondering, what are your concerns for doing it? Like, it's all hypothetical, but, like, what are your concerns? Are you concerned that children are going to mimic violence? Are you concerned that it's going to traumatize? Because, like, for example, like, I was in high school when Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 dropped, and I remember the controversy about, like, the no Russian mission of shooting up the airport, and it's like, well, obviously, like any rational thinking person or preteen should be able to connect the dots and go, well, yeah, I can't get my hands on a gun, and no, I shouldn't be mowing down the masses. But then on the other hand, you have something like Skate 3, where it's a completely fine, plausible option to run up to strangers and just twat them with your skateboard. Like, which one's more plausible that could happen, but which one are you more afraid of? Like, I don't really, like, and I know, like, it's almost like going around in a circle about, like, why do you want to make these things violent? Well, I don't, like, it's interesting. It's so interesting that it's like, it's an exploration. Like, I know there are certain things where it's like, well, the violence is an exploration of, like human psyche and the deeper feelings of, like, everyone has, like, these primal urges of violence and whatever. Okay, cool. But, like, why? Like, I think when you add a why to the violence, I think it becomes, like, you can vindicate it and justify it a bit more. And I've said it before, like, I don't know, could you make Silent Hill PG-13? Could you make Saw PG-13? I think you have some interesting options of, like, okay, we could make a superhero movie a horror. Could we make a horror a superhero movie? Like consider your options.
Well, there was the New Mutants, wasn't there? That at one point wasn't that going to be rated R, and they were saying this is going to be the first proper horror superhero movie. And then,
yeah,
there was all this thing about it, and then obviously with the Disney acquisition, they were probably not going to do that, and then re-edit it to be PG-13. But I think you need to have the rated R stuff to explore the different genres within film, because I don't look at comic book movies as a genre. I look at it as a medium in a way. Now, within that medium, you can have many different genres. Like the MCU has proven that.
Exactly.
I look at Winter Soldier is like a thriller. You have the Ant-Man movies, which are heist films, and all these different genres of films. And I think you can do that with crime films, action films, where you can, I want to see blood and guts, because sometimes, like you said, Kyle, why is important. But at the end of the day, films are a visual experience. Sometimes it's just visually satisfying to see that, and then again, obviously Zack Snyder's a big topic right now because of the movies coming out, and he's heavily focused on these darker things, but he's one to say that I just like to see this stuff. I just like to see big, epic, violent action scenes when I'm making movies.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, look at how many times people tried to like boycott or go off about Tarantino because of how violent his movies are. Did it ever stop him? Absolutely not. And now there's talks of him doing a Star Trek movie. Like, it's just one of those things. Like I wonder, like, there's definitely an argument to be made about being desensitized, because you take it like you start with, I don't know, it starts with Batman breaking someone's arm. That's fine. Well, then another movie does it. And then another movie does it. And then someone wants to get more attention by having someone's eyes gouged from their skull. Like I think when it becomes sensationalized and it starts going off the deep end to try and like, oh, well, we're used to seeing it, so we'll try something new. I think there's a problem with that formula. And I'm not saying, like, obviously we can expect superhero movies to do this, but I think there's a formula of, like, these superhero movies where, like, okay, you can guarantee, like, the hero's going to go on this journey, the villain's going to get, like, destroyed or die or whatever, and we move on, all happy. But, like, well, try something new. Maybe that, like, one of the most iconic Batman moments is Bane breaking his back, and that whole journey of, like, coming back to do it, like that's going to have a psychological effect. So what are the effects of, like, I thought Iron Man 3 was really interesting, that, like, he started having panic attacks, and we were talking about that. Like, I don't know, like these things have justification, but I don't know when it comes to just, like, if you just go, violence, well, can you justify it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because these films are action-based, and these things do have things exploding, people getting hurt and stuff. Like, I think, like, when you had, like, the violence at the end of Winter Soldier, and Bucky's beating his, like, Captain America's face, and he's like, then finish it, because I'm with you till the end of the line, his face is all bruised, and he looks like he's gone through the ringer. It makes sense. You can see, holy hell. Yeah, so I think it can work. I think it can't work. I sound like a broken record, people.
But this is why I think this is why this is such a good topic to discuss. But to go on that, this is why I really love the Netflix Punisher series, because up until the John Berthel take on the character, I was pretty like, I like the Punisher, he's cool, but, you know, most of the time he's very one-dimensional. At best, he's two-dimensional. Very, very, not, you know, like, it was very much played like that in the comics. But then what the Netflix decided to do, really focus on what is it like to be a man of military and to have PTSD and to go through that, and then to tie that in. It just makes more sense than why you're with this guy on his violent journey, because he's gone through this traumatic experience in the field of war. Do you know what I mean? So you can totally see why this guy's psyche is like, I need to put these scumbags in the ground. Like, Punisher's whole thing is actually about killing people because of his traumatic experience, both in the military and also losing his family.
Well, it comes down to that glorifying violence, like Kyle said. I think that's the biggest thing for me is, again, it's when, and unfortunately, and, you know, going back to that video, they bring that up with Watchmen, and Snyder can be like that. He can, because you said he likes it. But at the end of the day, especially in Watchmen, you know, they mention that the graphic novel very much shows the violence, but not in a glorifying way, in a sort of way of like, look how out of control these heroes are. Whereas Zack Snyder's film does a bit more of the like, oh, look how cool it is that, you know, Night Owl is like landing and like breaking this guy's neck, and, you know, oh, it's like all slow motion. So he's losing that aspect of it. Whereas something like The Boys, you know, you mentioned the Punisher there. It's quite similar to Billy Butcher in The Boys. You know, he goes to his dad and he's just like, I made you who you were. And he's like really pissed off at him because he's like, yeah, you made me this monster who's like able to beat people up, which I don't, you know, which is a horrible thing that, you know, you turned me into. But that's the commentary they're making. And it's the same with characters like Homelander. They're willing to do like horrible graphic things because they're horrible graphic characters. But that's where the problem comes when you then start to say that should Batman and Superman be doing those like horrible graphic things, because that's not a hero. And people have said that with, you know, WandaVision now. It's come out and they're like, why is this character not getting any repercussions? Because they literally just kidnapped and like tortured a town full of people. personally, I felt that they did have the repercussions and they didn't show them as a hero. They were an anti-hero. They were very much like a Magneto type of character. But I can understand why some people might have had that reading from it, but I think that the show did a decent job in showing that they weren't glorifying it. But there definitely are cases in the past in which there will be those characters which are like, well, why are they doing that? Why are we saying that this is okay to do? Because it's not. It should always be painted as this is a horrible thing. Like in, The Boys, it's painted as a bad thing. We don't want to see that. And that's where I sometimes have issue with it, is again, in Kick-Ass, they use it as like, he goes out and he wants to save the day, and then literally goes to hospital because he's like really fucked himself up, and like he's, his bones are broken and everything like that. So you feel the repercussions of like, wow, this is what it would actually be to be a superhero, and when you think you can save the day. So that's the point of that story. Whereas, I gotta say, I have some problems with Logan, like story-wise. I know everyone like loves it, and there's certain personal reasons I like struggle with it. But I do find the end a bit glorified in terms of the children. I never got on board with like why there's these mutant kids like, oh yeah, look at this girl's turning this guy to ice, and then like, she's breaking him apart, and this girl's like putting vines in this guy and split. I'm like, why? I'm like, they're like children. I didn't like that. I don't mind it so much with X-22 because that's kind of the point of the character, is that she's like this monster like Wolverine. But I never understood why they did it with the other mutant children. I was a bit like, I don't need to see this. I don't like it.
I mean, I see what you mean, but I push back because those children were in the exact same position as X-23. They were all experimented on in the same hospital, do you know what I mean? And went through all the same traumatic experiences.
Yeah, but it just comes down to then how can you differentiate between them being the characters that you support or the heroes in that situation? Why are they better than the goons who are going and chasing them and that kind of stuff? And that should be, again, that's why people have issue with that moment with Superman, like the neck breaking scene. To me, I always thought Superman would be the character. He would find a way. He would find some way around it, kind of thing. It's like Batman, that's why you have the whole Jason Todd thing of like, he won't kill somebody, and he's like, why won't you kill somebody? And that's why they have that confrontation when he's like Red Hood and everything like that. And but that's the moral of the character. He's like, I do not kill. And I think that's important, and that's the definition you need to make. So when you see characters then break those rules or start to act like the villains, it then muddies your entire story and just, damages the character ultimately.
Which is almost kind of why Watchmen was so successful, because when Alan Moore originally started that, he wanted to get the Charlton characters, couldn't get the rights to do that, so he just based the Watchmen characters off already establishing characters within the DC universe. I mean, look, he can't do Superman, so I'll just make another superpowered being. And what are the implications of a superpowered being like Dr. Manhattan in our world? Rorschach and the Comedian, I would say they're a mixture of Batman, a vigilante who has a black and white way of thinking. Like, what does that do to a person? So, yeah, it's interesting that we can keep talking about these stories and making new characters, but the big question at the minute is like, what about the current characters? And I think from the box office, and people's reactions generally online and stuff, they it seems they're more for new characters being portrayed as rated R and not already established characters. But then it goes to my sort of final question for you guys. I'll go to you, Kyle, first. Is there one character or storyline that you would like to see rated R? Because a lot of people are, like you said, you want to see how they work around Blade being rated R. But I'm one of those people in the camp of like, I'm not sure because the R rating of Blade for me was part of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. I was just thinking about this, and I was the thing that came to mind. I was like, could you imagine if Tom Holland's Spider-Man gets the black suit eventually, and he pummels someone within an inch of their life, and that's his like moment of clarity where he's like, this isn't me. Like, I know it's not like a full R rating, but like I think that'd be an interesting scene, like where this violent outburst would be justified because it's not him. We haven't seen it before. It sets the scene, but If we're gonna go full R rating, let me think. Ooh, my little Willy Wonka's factory of my brain is going haywire right now. I don't know. I mean,
I've got one. If you want a bit more time to think.
Yeah, I'm gonna need some time off.
I mean, they're already sort of making this into a TV show, but I would make this into a movie. I want to see a full rated R horror Justice League Dark. Give me all the demonic shit that's possible. Like, give me demons ripping off people's heads and all this stuff. Constantine and all that coming in and killing demons and Swamp Thing. Let's get all that involved. Like, I want to see that. Like, just that. I'm just like, yes, the Dark Justice League. And then if you want, do your, you know, the established Justice League with the happy characters that we know and love.
I mean, is it a cop-out for me to say, like, I want, like, my own movie of Carnage USA? Like, full, I know that character's pretty violent anyway, but, like, I honestly think, like, I mean, they've kind of just done it with WandaVision, like, a whole town can be taken over sort of thing, and I think, like, having this, like, zombie-esque sort of, like, do we, like, how do we put down random townsfolk without killing them when they're being controlled by an actual murderer who will not hesitate to pull out my jugular sort of thing? I think that's, like, a really interesting sort of, like just, oh, man, like, so Evil Dead, like, sort of thing. Like, oh, man, I'd love that.
Have you got any ideas, Dave, what you would do?
I think kind of like what Kyle said earlier made me think of when he said, like, Ghost Rider. I think that you could easily, if Marvel wanted to, have some sort of DMCU if they wanted, like a dark Marvel Cinematic Universe, because a character like Ghost Rider, again, I don't see that as like, oh yeah, he's going to team up with the Avengers. I don't think, I remember even when I had the Marvel Ultimate Alliance game and you would have like Ghost Rider, and I was like, this doesn't look right. I was like, I never thought the Ghost Rider doesn't blend in with any other superhero. I'm sorry. So I think you could easily have that. You could have like Punisher, Ghost Rider, Blade all exist within this like dark universe if you want. I think even with like Blade, I think that because it's like vampire stuff, we've seen like with things like Lord of the Rings, you can get away with sort of like chopping heads off of, orcs and stuff like that. I think they could get, could do it without having that R rating, because it's kind of, again, that sort of more fantasy element. And with Doctor Strange, I think we were talking earlier about, it potentially being a horror. Well, we've got Sam Raimi, who again made the Spider-Man films, which did a fantastic job of balancing that, of having like, literally, Green Goblin blasts the hell out of Aunt May's house. She's there praying to God, and he's like, finish it. Like, that is some psycho shit in that film.
I go back to the origin of Dr. Octopus when he's been on the surgery table.
That was my next example.
Terrifying,
literally, the woman scratching the floor, like, ugh, like, that's horrible. So yeah, we've seen that he's able to do that and still keep it within a PG-13 sort of restriction. So I think that I don't have any problems with that. So there's none that really come to my mind. I think that has to be R-rated, because I think there's enough times where I think you can do it without having to have it and still be dark and creepy. And I would just, I'm just up for more characters who are, new and stuff like that, which justify why they've got the R rating. The only one I would say that jumps to my mind is something like Ghost Rider, because like Kyle said earlier, he's literally, like associated with the devil and death and that kind of stuff. So I think that it makes sense to have that character be rated R. Because I think even, was the Nicolas Cage, they were like 12s, I think.
I think they were PG-13s, yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't go there, and I think that hindered those films. So I would say Ghost Rider.
It's going to be quite interesting, obviously, with Marvel now doing a Moon Knight series. Like, that's going to be the big one. Like obviously, they kind of like...
That's PG-13, because that's going on Disney+.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's going to Disney+, but like, god damn it.
They can make it their Batman, though. They can still walk that line of, like I said, in the Dark Knight and those kind of films of without go in there kind of thing. Because like I said, a lot of the time it just comes down to whether they say fuck or not. So again, like, and sometimes it just seems overly like, because again, that's where I have problems with Logan. I was just like, I don't want to see Professor Xavier saying that, you know, like,
fuck off, Logan.
It is funny because I was doing some research, and apparently you're allowed one F-bomb in a PG-13 movie. And as soon as you say more than one, like if it's 2 or more, it becomes an R, which I always found it funny that in the prequel X-Men movies, there's always just some person saying fuck.
Yeah.
And I was always
Go
like,
fuck yourselves.
why is that there? That just seems so out of place. The only one that made sense was the Logan one where he tells them fuck off.
yeah.
Yeah, but then you have James McAvoy saying it to him in Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
That delivery is so funny as well, because there's like a stammer of it, and he's just like, fuck off.
I think I do remember you now. Yeah. We came to you a long time ago seeking your help. And I'm going to say to you what you said to us then. Fuck off.
So yeah, it's an interesting discussion, and I think we've surmised there is no right or wrong answer, and I think Alan Moore would blame himself for all of this. I think he kind of does blame himself.
Oh, he does. Yeah, he said that he regrets the Killing Joke. He doesn't like that he played a part in that, and that he actually said that the Adam West Batman is the best version of Batman. So he's completely gone back on what his feelings were towards that.
He's just a crazy warlock hiding out in the forest. He's great. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of the show. I mean, this has been a really good topic. Kyle, before we go, is there 3 rated R comic book movies that you recommend everyone should either watch for the first time or rewatch in a new perspective?
Blade 2. Hands down, Blade 2. Like, man. Like, even just for the work that goes into the prosthetics, like that stuff, like the final fight scene CGI doesn't hold up. I'll hold my hands up to that, but like the prosthetics in that movie blow my mind. Dredd is just fun, like the Carl Urban Dredd movie. That's a good lot of fun, and just I guess for classic reasons, The Crow. It's just it's not too R-rated, but like it's really nice. Like this almost like not vengeful spirit, but like this guy who's coming back for redemption sort of thing.
All pretty good choices. I mean, you stole one of mine. I was going to say The Crow, but I'd recommend for people to rewatch Sin City. Like, I think I rewatched that. I thought that is just visually so satisfying to watch. And like, it's full of R. It's from the comics. The comics are R, so it's Frank Miller's sensibilities come to life, and I love it. And the other one, every person I ask, I say, have you seen the Watchmen TV show? And if they haven't, I go, stop what you're doing and watch that show right now, because I think that is arguably the singular most important piece of comic book content we have out at the minute, for all sorts of different reasons.
I'll just say I'll give you The Crow, because I've changed my mind. Everyone should see the only season of Swamp Thing, the latest season of Swamp Thing. That stuff slaps. Like, fucking forget prosthetic jobs in Blade. Go watch Swamp Thing. That stuff is insane.
Dave, what are your choices? I think I can suspect what your choices are going to be.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I've mentioned it with Kick-Ass, because I think that if you haven't seen that, it was very ahead of its time. It's 2010. It was before all of this rated R kind of stuff became more popular, and they did this whole kind of like, fuck Batman sort of stuff, just like, putting the F-bombs on certain superheroes. And just the fact that, again, like, I just had to respect, I don't know whether... we want to throw it in there because this is talking about rated R, but the word cunt does come up in that film. Like literally like an 80-year-old girl or whatever she is, 12-year-old girl says that word and then continues to go and like chop up some drug dealers in like an apartment to the Banana Splits theme song. Can you get more, ludicrous and rated R than that? I don't think so. And yeah, it's a bit of a weird recommendation because we haven't seen it, but I just want to make sure that people go watch this film when it does come out, is that The Suicide Squad from James Gunn, because it will just prove that the Suicide Squad film should have been rated R. that is, a characters and franchise that should be rated R. I will say that it adds, because they're villains, for God's sake, so nobody's going to be there watching it going like, I'm not sure if this is, questionable about what they're doing, because they are, villainous characters, like I said, with the boys and stuff like that. And just a random one I'm going to throw out there, because I saw this. I kind of enjoyed it, was Wanted, the film with James McAvoy and Angelina Jolie. I always kind of enjoyed that. I thought, again, that was kind of a good example of using the R rating to good effect. The fact that you got somebody like James McAvoy, who's this kind of like pushed, angry office worker who tells like that co-worker, like, I don't know, does he tell her to go fuck off or something, like similar vein. And yeah, you just have quite some like dark, messed up moments in that, which kind of work for the rating. It didn't appear that it was like doing it because it was cool. It was just doing it because it kind of worked for the story, etc. Also has a very cool Tim Burton soundtrack. I
did not expect you to pull out that one. Fair enough. I thought you were actually going to go for Kingsman.
Yeah. I was like, I've chosen Matthew Vaughn once, so I was like, I can't go like two.
It's funny though, because Wanted is written by Brian K. Vaughan, who also wrote Kick-Ass and Kingsman. So
yeah, exactly. So that's why I thought it still ties together somewhat, but it's not literally like the Matthew Vaughn directed films.
All great choices from both of you. So yeah, that wraps it up for us, talking about all these blood, bullets, profanity, sex, and all the stuff that comes with rated R stuff. Thank you everyone for listening. As always, we appreciate everyone coming on board and listening to us discuss all the superhero cape shit that we love doing. But before we get out of here, Kyle, would you tell the people where can they find you? And I have to say, it's been a pleasure having you on.
The pleasure's been all mine. It's always fun talking about the darker side of happiness. It's where I linger. And you can find me on Instagram at kshaun.thomas. And you can follow my poetry page as well, which is kshaun.poetry. It's in the link to my Instagram bio. And if you like heavy metal stuff, I've got some stuff going on that Instagram. So, yeah, that's where I am.
Dave?
You can catch me at David Osgar, Osgar, on Twitter and on Letterboxd. And you can catch me on freshtakehub.com, which is the website that I run. And when this episode comes out, there is a big Fresh Take content coming out. I can't say what it is right now, but if you like check the page, like on the day this is out, there will be a tease for it. It will be out tomorrow on Friday. Something I've been working on for ages. I've been teasing Jake about it for like a very long time. He doesn't know what I'm talking about still. But if you
I don't know what you're talking about.
If you liked what I've been talking about, certain elements today, certain directors, certain characters, you will like what I've got coming up. I'm very excited. So keep an eye on the Fresh Take page. Go like us on that Facebook as well. It's going to be very exciting.
I've been trying to get it out of him for ages, but he won't budge. He won't tell me.
Yeah, look at him, a little teaser gremlin over there.
Yeah, you can also find me on the socials at Twitter at Sweaty Jake, and also on Letterboxd at Jake Hart. So that's Hart. And for Capes, Cows, and Masks, we're also on Twitter and Facebook at Capes, Cows, and Masks. And if you're enjoying this, definitely leave us some reviews, ratings on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, whatever you listen to. It all helps us go up in the rankings. Tweet it, post it, put it in your Facebook, whatever you need to do. And the best thing you can do is recommend us to all your friends who love cape shit, superhero, sci-fi, and all other great stuff within pop culture. We'll see you next time then. Stay safe, everyone, and bye-bye now.